And I have here with me, all the way from Kenya. I hope you're in Kenya right now. Priscilla, are you in Kenya? Where are you?
I am in Lusaka.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us, really. She's a very busy person. She's all over the world doing all her adventurous stuff. And it's been hard getting her on the phone or anything at all. So I'm happy that she made it, actually. So thank you for being here. I know Priscilla when I was working with ActionAid, and she was an inspiration, really, doing a lot of work across the continent with young people and lots more. So I'm happy that she's here to talk about green jobs. So please, over to you, Priscilla.
Thank you, Lola. It was always amazing to work with you. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? I hope everyone is fine. I'm sorry my lighting is quite bad, but hopefully you can somewhat see me. So I'm Priscilla, as Lola said. Just as a way of introduction, I work in technology, but right now I'm also working for a climate organization called Greenpeace International. I didn't prepare any slides because I want you guys to lead the conversation, but I'll start off by sort of giving a definition of what green jobs are. It's basically thinking about work that takes into account sustainability of the planet. I think we all understand climate change is now a big challenge everywhere. We're seeing flooding, we're seeing heat waves, we're seeing, all sorts of disasters that are happening. And what's interesting from an African perspective is that we're really facing a lot of the damage to the ecosystem, and we're paying the price when our contribution to the climate change process was very minimal. It was about, I think if we compare to the United States of America, for example, they produce like 80 times more greenhouse gases than we do. So for us, the question that we have to be asking ourselves is, the industrial revolution of the West got us to where we are, where the planet is in danger. We as Africa need to get to a level where we've developed. But how do we do that while still thinking of sustainability? How do we make sure that we're not being penalized and our countries are not being stopped from developing, but that we're still thinking about the environment for future generations? Because if we keep up at the trajectory we're going, we're obviously going to then run into other problems, such as food crisis, farmers having different weather patterns that affect their livelihood, and so on. Now, what are some examples of green jobs? So it could be in agriculture, like I mentioned. It could be if you're working on sustainable renewable energy sources like solar, like wind. You could also be working on technologies that help with the environment and so on. Now, the challenge I want to put in front of all of you is whatever job you're doing, whatever work you're doing, how do you make sure that you're thinking of sustainability? For example, I'm in tech. Tech is wonderful. It gets us everywhere we want to be. However, all that data that we're storing, all that data that Google's storing, Hotmail, whoever you use, uses servers. So for me as a tech practitioner, I'm like, those servers are running on electricity. A lot of the electricity that we use is not running from renewable sources. So how do I, as a technology practitioner, start to incorporate elements of sustainability into my work so that my job, even if it's one of the not so traditional green jobs, my job still becomes a green job? So if you're running a business, how are you making sure that whatever you're doing, you're factoring in environmental sustainability, making sure it's green? If you're running a business, if you're employed as an accountant or whatever, how are you influencing the choices that your organization is making around sustainability? So for me, that's the challenge. And I wanted to stop here for a bit and then take questions so that it's more of a conversation than me preaching about green jobs to you, because I think this is an area that we can explore together. And I'd rather hear what you would like to know more of, and then we have a conversation on that. So the floor is open to everybody. Please just put your hand up and we can have a conversation.
All right, ladies, please indicate if you would like to ask a question. But I would like to know from each one of you as well, when you heard about green jobs, when you saw it on your agenda, what came to your mind? What were you thinking about, so that she knows and then she's able to answer your questions or guide you in that area? Yeah.
Actually, good afternoon, Madam Priscilla. It's good to see you. Nice to see you. Actually, me, like, I was like, green jobs, green jobs. What came to my mind was just agriculture, nothing else.
You see, climate and environment are are quite complex topics. There are a lot of factors that affect the environment. So whenever you're coming up with your idea or your job or whatever it is, you have to already be thinking about the different factors that will affect how your brand presents itself in the current state where climate change is a big deal. Now, when you're branding yourself, first of all, you have to make sure that you understand what you're talking about. So, for example, and this is a really good example because a lot of us a few years ago, when we were told, oh, climate change, we thought that if I go and plant a few trees, then I'm being sustainable. But we have realized now that that's considered greenwashing for the most part. There's nothing wrong with planting trees. Your organization can plant trees, it contributes. But if, for example, you work for a really big company that is in manufacturing and is emitting so many, is creating so much damage to the environment, a lot of these companies, and I don't want to name any in case you work for them, a lot of these companies destroy the environment and then pretend to plant trees to offset. But the amount of damage they are causing is far more than the offsetting by planting trees. So what I'm trying to say is, if you then show up and say, oh, but I'm planting trees, if you're talking to somebody who understands the concept of climate change, they will interrogate to see whether that planting of your trees is enough to offset whatever damage you're doing to the environment. So make sure you understand some of the question marks that are going around in the climate action space. The other thing I would say, and especially for us as Africans, I think we're at a really, really good advantage to brand ourselves as climate ambassadors, particularly because when I think about it, at least I'm Zambian, so at least from where I'm sitting, when I think about it, a lot of our indigenous knowledge actually took care of the environment. We actually understood sustainability of the planet before we kind of threw out everything that we know. We need to start asking ourselves as Africans, what are some of the indigenous pieces of knowledge that we threw away that were actually good for the environment? A lot of African communities were actually very, very much plant-based, with a bit of meat eating every so often, but it wasn't our primary diet. I don't know, but we generally ate a lot of what we found. So how do we go back to that? Because a lot of the conversation you find in the climate space is, oh, we're having too many cows and so on. When I was working as an IT support person, I started looking at how can I help my organization to reduce its carbon footprint. So it was things like I programmed that all printers should switch off after a certain time. All electricity would go off at 19 hours in the office, 7 p.m., for those who understand the other way of telling time. And so you start to look at how can I contribute to making it green. If you're running your own business, that actually becomes a selling point. If I can come and say I'm manufacturing lipstick, but the end-to-end process of this lipstick that I'm manufacturing is eco-friendly and contributing to the sustainability of the environment, I can guarantee you, if you're looking for funding, that makes it easier. If you're selling to somebody who's conscious, that makes it easier. So just try and find opportunities to figure out how you contribute to sustainability. So I would say if you're in HR and you want to help the organization, it's things like I'm saying, putting policies in place that reduce waste, putting policies in place that make sure that if you're signing agreements, for example, if you have some influence on procurement, making sure you vet your suppliers to ensure that they're using renewable sources of energy. There's so many different things that you can do. And also just a lot of education. For us on the continent, climate is a big thing, but it's not as big as many of the other challenges that we're facing. So it tends to be put on the back foot. You're at a stage where you can actually craft your entire career. Do you understand what I mean? So let me give you a bit of my background. I started off, I didn't do a bachelor's degree in the beginning. I did a diploma. because obviously university was inaccessible for whatever reasons, finances, time, and everything. So I did a diploma, and then I did a higher diploma, and I started working. But the one thing I want to say is that when you just start working, you have to be willing to work really hard. The one thing I've seen is a lot of, oh, I will just do what I'm paid to do, but you don't make your mark that way because everybody else is working at the, at the average level. So you have to, and by working hard, I don't mean you work from 6 in the morning to, 10 p.m. Work smart, make sure that the quality that you're delivering is here. So if everybody else is here, make sure the quality of work that you're delivering is here, so that if anybody is looking for somebody to get things done, you're the person that they're looking at. For me as a tech practitioner, what became very important was innovation. So I was constantly asking, what can I do different in this office that will set me apart? So it was building systems that nobody had thought of, listening in meetings to make sure that, if there's a challenge that I hear, I start to think, how can we use technology to solve this problem? So I'll give you an example. I was actually laughing. I left Zambia. So I'm now based in Kenya, which is why Lola was thinking I'm in Nairobi. I left Zambia 7.5 years ago. When I landed in Zambia, I got a text message on my phone giving information about rape and rape culture and sort of how you can protect yourself. And it was very heartwarming because that text message goes out to 200,000 young Zambians. We built a platform back in the day. This was 10 years ago when I was still at UNICEF. But that platform was built from me sitting in the meeting in front of everybody else. And I was at the back of the room and they were complaining about, oh, teenagers are not going to get counseling and so on. So we built a platform to connect teenagers to counselors on SMS. And that platform still exists today and it's still serving young people. So sit and think, what are the challenges that are being faced by my organization and how can I help solve them? So for me, that would be the big thing. And like I'm saying, all companies now are thinking about sustainability. So if you're already clued up, you can easily walk in and say, right, simple things. How can we program the printer to not print anything more than 500 pages so that when Cynthia wants to print her thesis, she's not using the office printer. So it's things like that. So I think just figuring out, how do I innovate and set myself apart? How do I have ideas? And ideas can come from anywhere. It can be you sitting at home and somebody says something interesting that you think, our office is facing a similar challenge. How do I help fix that? And then, of course, attaching yourself to mentors and sponsors that will mention your name in rooms. Because when you just start out, and this is also for people who are doing businesses, when you just start out, you don't have the big visibility that you need. So you need people mentioning your name. If you're selling food, you need me. When I know there's an event we're having, we need somebody to cater for the 10 o'clock snacks. You need to know that Priscilla would definitely be like, let's get Cynthia to be the one that provides the snacks. If you are, a receptionist, you need to know that if there's a high level management, somebody's going to be like, the person who can make this presentation is that person sitting at reception. So find sponsors and mentors who will mention your names in rooms that take you to the next level. And be willing to be very humble. The one thing that I had to learn was take feedback without attaching any emotion to it, because that's how you grow, that's how you learn. A lot of times when we're given feedback that's not positive, we feel attacked and we immediately jump into justifying or explaining why we behaved how we behaved or whatever. But if you can just remove emotion and then judge the feedback on its merit, I think for me that has really helped. Another thing career-wise as an undergrad for me is you really just understanding that being a young Black African woman is a superpower, and don't let anybody else tell you about it. A lot of people ask me, oh, how do you get past all the negative things about being Black and African? And I'm like, I just don't answer to it. I think it was, I don't know if it was Maya Angelou, but somebody said, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. So that would be my bigger tip as well, of always that's their business. They want to say Africans don't know this, or young girls don't know this, or women don't. That's their business. That's not your business. You have to know who you are, what value you're bringing to the table, and just run with it.
Thank you so much. You made it. I'm so happy to see you join the call.
So happy to see everyone. Thank you. And looking forward to seeing what results you have when, like when we meet in like a year or 2 years, or we bump into each other in some place. Can't wait.
Right.
I think everyone will be doing great.
Thank you so much.